even as momentous disasters unfolded. I mean, the unspeakable, the collapsing of the Twin Towers, one after another, that while there was a high pitch to a lot of the voices and a little screaming and yelling, the rapidity with which calm was restored on the radio, and they went back to sending orders and continuing operations and acting in a logical manner, you really do revert to your training as a second nature.
As you look at this and you listen to John Miller, and I thank you, John, for that. No one is better plugged into the police and firefighting apparatus in New York City than John Miller. He not only been a reporter for most of his adult life, but he worked for the police department in New York for a while before he had the good sense to come back to journalism, and he is totally plugged in. But even and when he talks about soft numbers here, it's because as you look at this disaster scene, and that's a live picture. That is a live picture 9, 10, 11, 12, 1, 2, 4.5 hours after this actually occurred, and you're looking at the smoke and the dust still emerging from the edges of these canyons in lower Manhattan, and the magnitude of trying to deal with these people, extends to moving them across the Hudson River in ferry boats, the ubiquitous ferry boat in New York harbors, not as necessary as they were in the days of greater ship travel, to the New Jersey side. And the Canadian Television Network, our partner, one of our partner television networks in Canada, is now reporting that American burn victims from here, I'm not sure whether it's the Pentagon or here, but I suspect it's from here, are being transported as far away as Canada to Canadian hospitals there. And there you get some sense of how difficult it is to get a real grasp of how enormous this is, other than to say, as the mayor of New York and the governor of New York State both said to us a short while ago, I just don't want to touch the casualty figures as of now. Pierre Thomas, who's been with us for much of the morning, also reports from the FBI. And we may never know much more about one of the aircraft than this, that at least one of the planes this morning, we haven't got no more details than that, was able to communicate that it had been hijacked. In some cockpits, in some of the aircraft now being in commercial service, there's a button you can hit that sends a code to your headquarters that says you've been hijacked, so you don't have to try to tell. It's been hard this morning as we continue to look at the smoke and the dust drift up from a crime scene, as John Miller called it, which we cannot feel in any intimate way on television, only through our reporters and through getting closer in and talking to the cops and the firefighters and the survivors. But we will, in time, get in there. But in the meantime, we've been trying very hard to figure out all of these airplanes.
Skyline, and really, the city, if not the world. Back to you.
All right, Mr. Hoffer, thank you. The questions that you raised, needless to say, will be answered in the days and weeks and months.
Absolutely. And I have to ask Jim here, Jim, having covered the 1993 bombing of the World Trade Center, Jim, the investigation on that, how did it progress? How will this investigation progress?
Well, keep in mind the World Trade Center explosion was confined to a very small area. In terms of forensic evidence, it was actually pretty easy to solve. They found the one truck inside that World Trade Center that exploded from within and not from without. They traced that truck back to the people who had rented the truck. You'll remember it was a Ryder van. They traced it back to them. It was pretty easy to find out the people who planted that bomb. This is a much different situation. Obviously, the Taliban today saying Osama bin Laden doesn't have the resources to pull something major like this off. But if Osama bin Laden doesn't, who does? Someone certainly pulled it off today.
And there had to have been amazing resources to pull this off. You're talking about a number of planes hijacked. There had to have been resources within the airports. There had to have
hijacked and then flown to their targets. Remember, the pilots who were originally on board those aircrafts weren't the ones who flew them into the World Trade Center. Someone with sophistication and know-how how to pilot those aircrafts had to fly them into the towers and then, of course, also into the Pentagon.
A suicide flyer, obviously. We're joined also in the studio this morning, or this afternoon rather, by Bill Heitman, who was in one of the towers when this happened. And Bill, after hearing Jim Hoffer and seeing him running from the scene there as the building collapsed, I was wondering, as you were trying to get out, you were in the darkened stairwell for an hour, did it ever cross your mind that the building might collapse?
Absolutely not. As a matter of fact, there was good spirit in the stairwell. I mean, I can honestly say we were having some laughs. You know, we were just getting down, making the best of it. Some people had to. It was more urgent for them to get down, so we would all call out, "Move to the right," and they would proceed down. But there was no panic, and there was generally, considering the circumstances, good spirit in the stairwell.
Again, as you said earlier, it didn't seem to be as bad as the other explosion, the first explosion.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
So no clue, and no panic as you were going down.
No panic. The thought of the building collapsing or being in any more danger never crossed my mind.
And then, Bill, you said it wasn't... Sorry?
Jim, I'm sorry to interrupt because I want to just point out in this live picture here, what you're looking at is damage to an adjoining building. Obviously, the impact of this, not just to those twin towers, but also to adjoining buildings. And it looks like there is still, obviously, smoke, and I think I saw some flames there as well, Jim. So clearly there is still damage. And
they're all bunched up so closely together down there, obviously, and there was bound to be collateral damage in the neighboring businesses and
absolutely.
buildings.
Bill, as you were going down that darkened stairwell, and you say you had no thought that the building might collapse, was that because you had faith in the integrity of the building, or simply because you did not know what was going on?
I had no idea the magnitude of the crash above us. We didn't know that we didn't know anything had happened over in 2. We thought it was just us in 1. And as the further we got down, you figured...
Smoke and ash form a suffocating dark cloud.
There's a cop right at the window there. All right, fine. Watch yourself, here he comes. You guys ready? Whenever you're ready. 3, 2, 1.
We are in an abandoned skyscraper, and quite frankly, I don't even know where I'm at. I see a sign outside that just gives me a reference of Barclay Street. As you can see all around here, the windows have been blown completely out. And as we take a walk towards the front of the building here, you want to take a look outside. If you have never been to war, like I have never been to war, then this is what it looks like. We don't know what that building is. We don't know where this building is, but they're obviously on fire. Maybe there's a chance that they could collapse. I've been on this earth for 37 years. I've never been to a war, but I can only imagine that this is as close as I've ever come. I'm going to walk outside, go up to the corner, and see if we can scoot out and move in.